When'd you get in?
I have to mute my watch. I want to get gavelled.
Okay. Good morning and welcome to the Clearwater City Council meeting. We are sitting in as the Community Redevelopment Agency for our first meeting today. Anyone that wishes to address the council during items for citizens to be heard not on the agenda, please come forward and fill out a comment card. And when you're recognized, please turn the card into the clerk. All right, we'll call the meeting to order. And do we have an approval of the minutes from the last meeting?
Move to approve the minutes?
Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, citizens to be heard regarding items not on today's agenda. Anyone to be heard? Okay, moving forward. New business items. I recommend approval of the amendments to the Clearwater Downtown Redevelopment Plan.
Good morning, Lauren Matsky, Planning and Development. Just a moment, please. So this item proposes changes to the Public Amenities Incentive Pool, which was established in 2004 in the Downtown Redevelopment Plan as one of many tools to support the CRA's redevelopment goals. Developers may request additional density or intensity, or both, and exceed what the plan says is the maximum development potential allowed on any property. But to receive this allocation, a project must include one or more public amenities or make a payment in lieu of providing those. And those public amenities or the types are listed within Chapter 4 of the Downtown Plan. So currently there are just over 2,000 dwelling units and about over 2 million square feet of floor area available through the pool, which can be allocated by the Community Development Board for a project anywhere within the downtown district. The proposed amendments establish that either the Community Development Coordinator, which is the Planning and Development Director, or the Community Development Board may approve allocations from the pool. This change would allow those units to be allocated without the need for a public hearing, thus allowing for a streamlining of the process. A companion amendment to the Community Development Code will be presented later this morning to the City Council, which would implement this change. The Downtown Plan, as I mentioned, also lists the various amenities that could be incorporated into eligible projects for them to be able to request units or density or intensity from the pool. This ordinance restructures that list and also expands the list of eligible amenities. For example, residential units have always been included on this list, but changes add emphasis for the need for residential rental units. Also noted is Class A office space is needed in the downtown core and in the Prospect Park or Prospect Lake character districts. Sustainable development techniques are proposed to be added, such as providing solar panels, EV chargers, or achieving a green building certification. As this is an amendment to the Clearwater Downtown Redevelopment Plan, the trustees are requested to make a recommendation to the City Council, and then this item will be presented Thursday night to the Council for their consideration.
Okay, any comments from the council?
I have a couple questions. Good morning, Lauren.
Good morning.
I have a question under the analysis part. So just, I should probably know this, but can you give me a definition of the what's a character district?
Sure. The character districts are the different defined sub-areas of downtown plan, of the downtown plan. So that would be the downtown core, Prospect Lake, downtown Gateway, South Gateway, and Old Bay. Okay.
And then, so we want to encourage or allow more office space?
Specifically encouraging Class A office space, and that would be in the downtown core and Prospect Lake. For Prospect Lake, that's where Crum is located. Mm-hmm. So, and that's our second most intense area.
So I just wonder about the amount of vacant office space, or how do we know that there's a big desire for more office space downtown?
Planning and Development worked closely with CRA and Economic Development and Housing. I don't know if Denise is not here, okay, but we work closely with her, and that's something that would be needed to achieve their economic development goals.
Okay. I think about, our discussions every now and then about the county consolidating and moving maybe out of Clearwater, and there would be extra office space if or when they do move or consolidate somewhere else.
Sure. I think her focus was really on that Class A, which is the top of the top, the desired space that new businesses,
Okay.
corporations would want to occupy.
And then I had another comment about, I love, the intentionality of rewarding or wanting more sustainable features. I think that's great. Can we also, it'd be nice if whenever we do these kinds of documents, I don't know if it's, but you've got on page 404, allowing sustainable design options as potential amenities for which pool allocations can be granted helps to address certain contributors to housing affordability and furthers the city's desire for livable communities as downtown develops. But I think, and helps us meet our Green Print 2.0 goals or something like that. Be nice. I'd just like to keep that front and center.
I do normally do that, I apologize.
Oh, no, that's fine. But I think that's, yeah. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the council?
In the ordinance itself, why have you taken out ground floor retail and also mixed-use projects?
Those are actually mixed, integrated into the bullet right below it, so that's part of just the restructuring that was included, because we wanted to tie it a little bit more to the character district's vision. So different character districts have different visions for what that would be.
All right, good.
But it's still integrated in there.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
I have a couple of questions and comments, but I think I'm going to reserve it to the work session rather than the CRA so we can move it along.
Okay. Nothing else on this item? Okay. All right, do we need an approval? It says recommend approval, okay. So do we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, approve allocating remaining white box grant funds to the Business Renovation Grant Program.
Good morning.
Good morning.
J. Matthews, CRA Director. At the January 9th CRA meeting, staff requested terminating the white box grant program because it's so similar to the Business Development Grant Program, which provides $100,000 in funding or up to $100,000 in funding. To date, there have been 7 grants in that program totaling $277,722. The CRA's white box grant program was established with a $300K budget. Today, there is currently one approved application for that grant, an active grant at $50,000. So staff recommends moving the remaining $250,000 from the terminated white box program, which we forgot to do then, to the Business Renovation Grant Program, which would bring that balance to $272,278. 4 applications are pending approval for that particular program, the Business Renovation, and so that would be the reason for recommending that we move this money to the Business Renovation Program from white box.
Okay, any questions or comments from the council on this item?
Yes.
So the white box, the 4 applicants that are pending will just apply through the Business Renovation Grant Program.
So the 4 pending grants, applications that we have right now are for the business renovation.
Okay.
Yeah, under the white box, that was when we presented in January, we found that, or the staff found that when applicants apply for the white box, they'll find out that the business renovation offered so much more, so they would just go apply for that.
That's right.
Which is why we originally terminated that program. It's very similar, just offering a larger amount. So we have 4 pending for business renovation, and the need is there, and then we have the funds sitting in white box, and it's a terminated program, so we just want to move it over.
Okay.
Any
Fantastic, thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, sir? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve agenda item 4.3.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Director's report.
Good morning again, J.
Morning.
Matthews, CRA Director. So I'm going to start with new businesses, some amazing news. Since we last met, we have had 3 businesses open in the downtown CRA. We have a Hilly's Ice Cream, which opened in the downtown gateway, as well as Flamboyant and the Captain's Cigar Lounge. Soon, Nash Keys will be opening. We're expecting a grand opening to take place the end of May. That will definitely be the first floor. However, if the elevator and the fire escape are manufactured, delivered, and installed in time, there is a possibility. Then the second floor will be a part of that grand opening as well. Otherwise, it'll be a phase 2 to that and coming very soon. We're very excited about that, as well as being in talks with the same developer for another project on the quarter, right next door. So we're hoping that we can update further on that next month. As it relates to supporting our existing businesses in the downtown CRA, we're starting to reach out to existing businesses this week so that we can lock in discount offerings to build promotions programs, which we want to run in conjunction with the grand opening of Coachman Park. Our goals are to ensure that events attendees are well aware of what's downtown as it relates to businesses, encourage the drive foot traffic from the park events back down to Cleveland Street or the downtown district, as well as the downtown gateway. Our grants programs are currently under audit and review still. I will complete that by the end of this month, so I'll be back to the trustees next month for approval to either launch new programs, modify different programs, so that we can begin opening programs again as it relates to grants beginning June 1st. We have a lot of exciting happenings coming. Our Living the Culture series to activate the downtown CRA is coming, starting with May 20th, A Taste of Ethnicity. It's going to be a cultural festival to commemorate World Diversity Day in conjunction with HR department and the DEI team. Also, in the month of June, we will be celebrating Pride downtown with several activities, as well as Juneteenth, which is a 3-day celebration this year that is in collaboration with the Clearwater Urban Leadership Coalition. September, as a part of Living the Culture Hispanic Heritage Month, we're going to be celebrating the grand opening of the Mercado, which is on schedule to be complete in August, although the streetscape down there is scheduled to be complete before the opening of the park. Certainly, we want that open and flowing to help with the Coachman Park crowd and traffic. Outside of Living the Culture, great things are coming up next month. Salsa de Mayo in the district is May 6th. It will be taking place in the CRA on Cleveland and Garden Avenue. Also, May 12th, the opening of the new Clyde Butcher exhibit in the main library. That will have a grand opening event at 7 p.m. on May 12th. And also, May 20th and July 22nd is an opportunity for a Stevens Creek cleanup. That has been a regular topic, particularly down in the gateway, that there's been litter and concerns about the pollution in the Stevenson Creek. And so a partnership between Keep Pinellas Beautiful as well as the city's sustainability office. They're offering 2 cleanups, again, May 20th and July 22nd. And those events are taking place from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. So lots of opportunities for us to help keep our part of Pinellas beautiful. Additionally, when it relates to the gateway, we're looking at placemaking programs to incorporate some type of maybe dumpster enclosure when we find out that we have the clear to do so, as well as looking at storm drains or screens for the storm drains. It's something that's an innovative practice that's used all over. It hasn't been used yet, but our Office of Sustainability is looking at ways that we can put a screen to stop the trash from going into the drains, particularly when dumpsters are very closely positioned or situated next to drains or curbs. So our Office of Sustainability is working with us in conjunction with the CRA to make that happen for a safer, cleaner, more environmental friendly Stevenson Creek. As it relates to our CRA structure, I have submitted a new organizational chart and changes to HR. The restructure includes modifying and optimizing current staff roles with the CRA staff. Those changes will be effective, according to HR, the 22nd of this month. And we're adding to the team and expanding so that we can be best equipped to service the downtown district, the downtown gateway, and all that is required for the soon-coming Coachman Park, Mercado, and North Greenwood CRA. Lastly, as it relates to the North Greenwood CRA, the plan will be going to the county May 22nd. That was rescheduled. It was originally scheduled for April 25th. There were some matters that needed to be cleared with the county, and now it's set to go May 22nd. Lastly, as it relates to North Greenwood, we're happy that you will be hearing later about the community grant and the applications that went forward. We had 57 applications totaling $6.9 million in asks, and we're happy that we're able to award 25 organizations out of that 57 out of those 57 applications, and they were awarded 1.4 in total, which is what we had for the program. Any questions? That concludes my report.
Any questions, comments? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Jay, thank you for that. I have just a couple questions. 3 chairs for the Stevenson's Creek cleanup and the trying to deal with placemaking and dumpster enclosure and storm drains. So that's fantastic. Any kind of a timeline on the dumpster enclosure storm drain screens?
So the storm drain screens are able to be fixed, I think, rather quickly. Melody from the Office of Sustainability has provided me with what they look like. I didn't even know they existed. She said they were used in various countries and something to stop
The big stuff.
from coming down. So I think that's something that could be implemented quickly and something that the CRA can work on as a project. Also, with the enclosures, I think we're waiting to work through some ordinance ambiguity or some questions around the ordinances that are there that are not allowing certain dumpsters to be enclosed. I think we have a team together to work on that on a larger or more broad capacity. So that came from our strategy meeting, so we're still working through that to see what we can do. We just want to get the program ready, and the CRA is going to take care of. We're already working on what it will look like, what the materials are, is it sustainable, how we can involve the community in the art around those dumpsters, the branding, what it will look like, to be sure it's consistent through the neighborhood. And so once we have the go-ahead, we'll be ready to go.
Great. So maybe use Trex, some kind of artificial wood or something, so it doesn't rot
Something
or
sustainable,
something.
yeah, that's why I put in the Office of Sustainability, because that's not my area. But definitely make sure it's sustainable and safe.
Yeah,
And Melody is working in collaboration with Eric in our office, who was placemaking. So we're hoping to have something that works and that beautifies the community, keeps the creek clean and safe.
great. And I would think that those screens for the drains, that's not coming out of any kind of CRA funds or anything. That should be just city streets or sanitation or whatever, right? It
I
should,
haven't really looked that far into it. I'm really just learning about them. I can definitely send it to you, what they look like and what the cost would be.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will look further into that and bring it to strategy.
because I think that's best practices. If we have other parts of the city that have drains that are vulnerable to a bunch of trash and stuff, we'd want those screens throughout, right, to protect our waters. And then the last thing, so you said the North Greenwood CRA is going May 22nd to the county. And so then does it need pardon?
May 23rd.
Oh, 23rd. And then after that, does it have to go up to the state for some final approval? Or are we done after May 23rd at the
I don't
county?
think it has to go to the state. I know that the trust fund has to be established, but I don't think.
Nope,
No, it
we're all
does not.
done? We're good?
We're
Okay,
good.
May 23rd. Fantastic.
I'm going to say that's an extra step that got slipped in there. I didn't think so, but
I didn't know if, that's always like one more approval. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yes, sir.
This may be a question for our city manager, but the pictures that we have of the dumpsters that are overflowing and causing the problems with, getting into the storm drains and things, is there anything we can do with, if dumpsters are overflowing all the time, forcing those people to get a bigger dumpster or 2 dumpsters, to me, that's just unacceptable.
So staff got together, and by staff, it was code enforcement, it was CRA, and solid waste and sanitation, innovation, all got together to discuss options on how we handle these overflowing dumpsters. And we do have a multi-prong approach that we are going to use to address that, which includes having code enforcement involved, which takes the longest amount of time just due to the due diligence periods that are within that. But also doing audits on these dumpsters. That takes about a month time frame as well to see if they are consistently overflowing. Then we do have the mechanisms in place to force them to either have additional pickups and or a larger container. Now, not every space that some of these are occurring at has the room for a larger container, but again, we have other options in terms of additional pickups. So we are deploying all of those and also making sure that our drivers, when they're out on their routes, that they are writing in to let us know when they are seeing these dumpsters that are constantly overflowing. So we've got a lot of resources looking at this so that we have a multi-pronged approach to get this addressed.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good news.
Okay, anything else for the CRA before we adjourn? Okay, thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned, and we're going to call to order.
No, we have to wait till 9 o'clock for
Okay,
trustees.
sorry. That wasn't on my notes.
Sorry.
Okay, this meeting's adjourned. We'll see you at 9 o'clock. Good morning. Welcome to the Clearwater City Council meeting work session. We will start serving as the pension trustees for this meeting. And anyone wishing to speak on items not on the agenda, please come up and fill out a comment card. And when your name is called or when it's your time, please turn your card in and keep your comments to 3 minutes. We look forward to hearing from you. Okay, call the meeting to order. Do we have an approval of the minutes from the previous meeting?
Move to approve the minutes?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. All right, citizens to be heard regarding items not on today's agenda. Anyone? Okay. New business items. Approve the new hires for acceptance into the pension plan as listed.
That's typically
morning.
all I would say for that item. Good morning, Billy
Oh.
Patrick. Joe.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve item 4.1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Approve the following requests of employees: James Benwell, Public Works Department; Christopher Johnson, Fire Department; and Antonio Donato, excuse me if I butchered your name, General Services Department, to vest their pension as provided by Section 2.419 of the Employees Pension Plan.
Awesome.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Yes, motion to approve agenda item 4.2.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, we approve the following requests of James Allerholt, Parks and Recreation Department; William Brown, Parks and Recreation Department; Kevin Bowden, Fire Department; Catherine Borden, Public Utilities Department; Michael Delavope, Fire Department; William Fry, Fire Department; Robert Furman, Police; Jay Gibson, Public Works; Deborah Lemon, Parks and Rec; Steve McKinley, Solid Waste; Terry Rowlaut, Solid Waste; Edward Schultz, Fire Department; Michael Whitaker, Public Works; Steve Walensky, Fire Department; and Julie Wyckoff, Library Department, for a regular pension as provided by Sections 2.416 and 2.424 of the Employees Pension Plan. Okay, we have a motion.
Motion to approve agenda item 4.3.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Annual review of the Employees Pension Plan investment performance for the calendar year and plan year ended December 31st, 2022. Mr. Ravens.
Good morning, trustees. Jay Ravens, Finance Director. This is our annual review of investment performance for the plan. This document summarizes the performance of the total investment portfolio versus its benchmark, as well as each of the 22 separate money managers for the various asset classes. I unfortunately won't be as brief as Billy was with her items, but I'll try to move through this as quickly as I can. But please interrupt me with any questions. Overall, it was a pretty disappointing investment year, as probably everyone is aware. On both an absolute basis, with a loss of 14.9% for calendar 2022, and on a relative basis as we underperformed our benchmark index, which was a negative 10.41%. Calendar 2022 was an unusual year for investment markets in that both equities and fixed income were down significantly at the same time. With the S&P 500 realizing a negative 18% return, the International Equity Index a negative 16% return, emerging markets a negative 20%, and fixed income a negative 13%. Additionally, some of our traditionally strongest performing money managers were out of favor for calendar 2022, due primarily to the sectors that they were invested in. It was a very unusual year with, for example, the energy sector realizing a positive 65% gain for the year, with most other sectors realizing significantly negative returns from 11% to 40%. I'll now briefly run through the 22 money managers. Our large cap growth money manager, the Northern Trust Index Fund, is a relatively new money manager hired in November 2020, and it performed pretty much at the index as expected. We have three large cap value managers, Eagle Capital, Manning and Napier, and the Northern Trust Index Fund. Eagle Capital had a very challenging year due to being significantly underweight versus the index to the energy sector, which, as I mentioned earlier, realized a 65% return for the year. This significantly impacted their performance relative to the index. However, they have consistently outperformed their index in each of the 4 prior years. They continue to stay true to the style we hired them for, and we expect them to continue to outperform over the long term. We will continue to monitor their performance, but we did just get their first quarter 2023 performance. They had a 12% return versus a 1% return for the index, so they've already had a significant bounce back. Manning and Napier had a good year, outperforming the index by 360 basis points. They've also performed well on a long-term basis, and we expect that to continue. The Northern Trust Index Large Cap Value Fund performed pretty much at the index as expected. We have one mid-cap growth manager, Artisan Partners. Artisan, similar to Eagle Capital, was significantly underweight to energy and consequently underperformed versus the index. Artisan has performed well on a long-term basis, continues to stay true to the investment process that we hired them for, and we expect them to continue to outperform on a long-term basis. Our small cap growth manager, River Ridge Partners, again fell victim to not investing in the energy sector, causing them to underperform for the year. Despite the down year, they continue to significantly outperform the index on the 3-year and 5-year basis, and we expect the strong performance to continue. We have 2 small cap value managers, Atlanta Capital and Victory Sycamore. Both outperformed the index significantly and continue to have very strong performance for the last 3 years and 5 years. We have 2 international equity managers that invest in developed countries, WCM and TS&W. Both had down years due to their country and sector allocations, but both continue to outperform on the longer 3-year and 5-year periods. We expect this long-term outperformance to continue. We have one emerging markets international equity manager, DFA. DFA has outperformed on the 1-year, 3-year, and 5-year time periods, and we expect their strong performance to continue. We have 2 fixed income managers, Dodge & Cox and Western Asset Management. Dodge & Cox has outperformed the index for the 1-year, 3-year, and 5-year periods, while Western Asset Management's performance has been pretty much at the index for those periods. We don't have any concerns with these managers at this time either. Our real estate core manager, multi-employer property trust, slightly outperformed for the 1-year period and has underperformed the index on the 3-year and 5-year time frames. We are pleased with the overall absolute long-term returns for this manager, and at this time we don't have any concerns with their investment style and execution, but we're watching them closely. We have 2 Core Plus real estate managers, Intercontinental and USAA. Intercontinental performed near the index for the year, slightly underperformed for the 3 years, and slightly outperformed for the 5 years, pretty much at the index. Again, we're pleased with the overall 3-year and 5-year absolute returns of 9.16 and 8.95%, significantly more than what we'd normally be looking for in real estate, and we have no concerns at this time with their performance. USAA has significantly outperformed the index with double-digit returns for the 1-year, 3-year, and 5-year periods. We have one real estate REIT manager, Security Capital. Security Capital slightly underperformed on the 1-year basis, slightly outperformed for the 3 and 5 years. No concerns at this time with this manager's performance. The plan participates in 3 timber limited partnerships, 1 with Hancock and 2 with Mulpus. Overall, we've been disappointed with our long-term timber returns, but are hopeful that the managers at this time are well poised for improved performance. The timber sector there's some cause for optimism currently with that sector, and we're hoping to see those returns improve. But those limited partnerships terminate in 5 to 8 years, so still a little while before we're out of timber unless we try to liquidate, which typically you take a pretty good loss with a limited partnership and trying to get out. So we're trying to ride that and just hope that we see some better returns before those expire. Finally, we have 1 infrastructure money manager, IFM Global Infrastructure. This manager has significantly outperformed on the 1-year, 3-year, and 5-year time periods, and we expect that excellent performance to continue. We've recently allocated an additional $30 million to this manager, bringing the plan's infrastructure investment to nearly $90 million, or approximately 7.5% of our investment portfolio. In summary, we continue to carefully monitor the performance of all these money managers on a quarterly basis with the assistance of the plan's investment consultant, Cap Trust. With an emphasis on long-term performance of the managers versus their respective indexes, we will continue to provide the trustees with recommendations for terminations as appropriate. Happy to answer any questions.
Quick question.
Yes.
Unless I missed it, I think we skipped over the mid-cap, the Boston Partners. Did you talk about that?
Did I miss that?
I think you did. And are they a new fund since we don't have any history on them past this year?
Yes, they are relatively new. Let me take a quick look at Boston Partners. Yeah, Boston Partners for the calendar year had a 6.9%, a negative 6.98% return versus their index of negative 12%. So they significantly outperformed for the 1 year. We hired them in April of 2020.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the council? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Jay. I have a question about energy sector had a 65% gain for the year.
Yes.
And some of these funds that did not perform well were not heavily weighted with the energy sector, you had said.
Correct.
Can you just explain what's included in that energy sector and what drove, like, just from your understanding, those big returns?
That, I think, primarily it would be crude oil and petroleum prices.
Okay. So it has nothing to do with renewable energy?
No.
Okay.
Not directly. I'm sure over time there'll be more and more, but I would guess there's not a large, it's not a large component of that sector at this point in time.
Okay. And then for like USAA, you said it significantly outperformed the indexed as well as the infrastructure. What's the USAA deal with that they significantly outperformed their index?
They primarily invest in government-owned office space.
Okay.
So they have a lot of federal offices that they invest in, and the values on those rebounded significantly.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Mr. Ravens. Director's report.
HR have nothing.
Good morning. Nothing? Okay. All right, anything else from the pension trustees before we adjourn this meeting? All right, thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned, and we're going to start the council work session. Call that to order, and economic development and housing is the first item.
So, Council, I received a request from staff to continue this item to a date uncertain. Legal has raised some questions regarding the tax credits, and there are other areas of the project that are being questioned, so staff needs additional time. They're going to try for the next meeting, but it's still not known if they're going to make it for the next meeting, but for the moment, it's continued.
Okay. Next item is Office of Innovation, Ruth Eckerd Hall Sustainability Plan presentation.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name's Brianna Hardigan. I'm the Director of Operations and Sustainability Coordinator for Ruth Eckerd Hall. We're excited to present our plan for sustainability at the Sound at Coachman Park. We'd also like to extend a big thank you to Micah and Melody from the city for their guidance throughout this process. Sustainability is defined as the ability to meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. In essence, planning for long-term future needs while making plans and decisions to balance economic prosperity, environmental quality, and human quality of life. Sustainable event venues work with nature and are aware of their limited natural resources as they provide entertainment and recreational space for a large volume of visitors throughout the year. They operate in appreciation for the natural environment, minimizing waste, and always seeking ways to use renewable resources while maintaining livability. Our sustainability plan touches on 8 strategic categories adopted from the city's Greenprint 2.0, and those are education and awareness, green energy and building, transportation, livability, water conservation, waste reduction, local food, and green economy. Providing education on what sustainability is, why it's important, what actions the venue is taking, and how visitors can help are all ways that we can achieve our sustainable goals. Our 3-prong approach is to promote, collaborate, and educate. We will promote through institutional branding collateral, including information about our initiatives on our website and in our facility tours, as well as encouraging guests and artists to be sustainability ambassadors. We will collaborate by seeking out opportunities in tandem with other community partners to supplement both youth and adult environmental education. We will educate our staff by including sustainability training in our onboarding process, continuing education, and operational practices. According to Greenprint, electricity is the biggest contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. Reducing the amount of energy used through efficiency improvements at the venue will be key. The city has already constructed the park to include green building practices, as it is built to nationally recognized leadership in energy and environmental design Silver Standard. Some of these improvements include the use of solar panels for renewable energy, LED light fixtures with built-in sensors, water-efficient toilets and low-flow faucets, and Energy Star appliances. Transportation is the second largest contributor to the city's greenhouse gas emissions. One of the ways we can help reduce emissions is by supporting and promoting multimodal transportation, such as public transport, biking, walking, and ride sharing. We will embrace the use of alternatively fueled or electric vehicles as a means of transport to our events. This information is going to be shared on our website, in our Know Before You Go emails, which provide vital details to patrons about their upcoming visit, and in our customer service interactions, so guests are encouraged to seek out alternative methods of travel. We've already begun and will continue to encourage our staff to use telecommunications to meet whenever possible. Greenprint describes a livable neighborhood as one that is pleasant, safe, affordable, and supportive to its members. To support the city's strategies and initiatives, the venue will support livability through conservation as it relates to ocean-friendly practices. By avoiding materials and supplies that pose a danger to marine wildlife and opting for biodegradable and compostable products, we can help reduce water pollution. We will prohibit the use of balloons, confetti, plastic straws, and single-use plastic while monitoring compliance with artists, vendors, and visitors alike. We will prioritize environmentally safe items, particularly in our food and beverage service areas. And finally, we'll create environmental justice by partnering to conduct venue tours and free park events for disadvantaged groups to experience and enjoy what the park has to offer. While the City of Clearwater has developed the park and space with conservation techniques, water-wise landscaping, and low-impact development, the venue operations team will primarily use information and behavioral change to inform visitors of individual water conservation habits. We can do this by including signage or stickers in restrooms, kitchens, shower units, or laundry rooms when appropriate to remind visitors that their efforts make a difference. Waste is an unavoidable result of human activity, but how we choose to handle that waste will determine the impact we make on our community. The 3 R's, reduce, reuse, and recycle, are 3 approaches to waste reduction. One of the ways in which we are reducing waste is by using less product. We are actively moving towards digital and paperless solutions wherever possible, with mobile-friendly tickets and digital communications and marketing to reduce our paper consumption. We will distribute reusable containers, like aluminum drinking cups when possible, and incentivize reuse with our products and swag. We will also be exploring opportunities to promote a green community through events like Trash to Treasure. We will research best practices for collection and separation of refuse and recyclables and establish facility policies to maintain them. We will explore partnering with local organizations for pickup and processing of compost and ensure visibility and instructions for proper waste disposal and recycling while inside the park. Local food sourcing can be beneficial to the environment in many ways, as it uses less transportation and consequently causes less carbon emissions. Local food choices encourage healthier, whole, and less processed options and benefits the local economy. We plan to partner with local growers and feature local products within our artist hospitality and food and beverage service. We will explore innovative and non-soil options for an on-site garden. We'll offer healthy options, including vegan and vegetarian, while encouraging the vendors we partner with to do the same. We plan to offer a variety of ethnic menus to highlight different cultures, connect with local interests, and highlight minority-owned brands. By supporting green practices, the park will continue to foster green business and green economic growth. This will be an opportunity to highlight a successful case in sustainable venues and will encourage positive changes in the events and hospitality industry. We can contribute to a green economy with the creation of sustainable guides for guests and visiting artists. We will showcase our green practices through the multi-channel promotions and seek out opportunities for innovative new practices. And finally, we will encourage green jobs as more opportunities arise and serve as an industry model for sustainable venues. So how are we going to implement this plan and track our performance? Who will be responsible? The sustainability coordinator and other key staff will be responsible for specific areas of the plan's execution. Progress and results will be communicated regularly to senior leadership at Ruth Eckerd Hall and the City of Clearwater. We will stay in open communication with our Ocean Allies community and seek guidance and collaboration with the city's sustainability team. Every park visitor, staff member, performer, and vendor has a stake in sustainability of our shared recreational space at the Sound at Coachman Park. This plan is just the first step of an ever-changing document intended to adapt and grow to meet the future needs of the Clearwater community while providing world-class entertainment and service to all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the council? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. This is super exciting. So I'm thrilled with this collaboration between Ruth Eckerd Hall and the city and our city team, Micah and Melody and others, and you're going to be our sustainability liaison, so thank you. I think there's such potential here for the city of Clearwater and Ruth Eckerd Hall to be seen as leaders in our region, if not our nation, with this venue that is literally feet from the water. And I think this is a phenomenal start, as we don't know what it's going to look like as far as operations. So I think it's great, and I'm excited to see it come to life and see how we can shape it, make it better, and look at measurements. I had a couple of questions that I just want to be real clear on. So as far as we're talking about the venue operation, so within those, the fenced-in area that Ruth Eckerd Hall controls, and the food trucks and the stage and the power and energy that's used, when Ruth Eckerd Hall has a presence down there, when something's going on. So is it accurate that Ruth Eckerd Hall is in charge of all of the energy costs related to the venue operation? So water, sewer, appliances, lights, sound, everything, that's a bill that's paid by Ruth Eckerd Hall. Is that correct?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, I think that's good because, you know, I want the person who's paying the bill to be in charge of the thermostat and all that stuff. So fantastic. I would encourage Ruth Eckerd Hall, you know, to think a little bit about partnering with Synergistics, who helps the city lower their energy costs significantly. And it's really at no cost to you. You share the savings. And I see Susan nodding, so you're aware of Synergistics. They're doing great things throughout the county. They have phenomenal numbers with the Pinellas County schools, and we're going to have our report next month, I believe, on our first year with them. So I think that's fantastic. I notice in part of whether it's this PowerPoint or the other one that's attached, that you're going to have monthly reports to your leadership. I think, and ours are like biannually, I think initially it'd be nice to have those reports a little more frequently, just to see where we're at and what it looks like. And again, I think there's a whole lot of grace as we start because there's so much that's unknown. I, you know, wholeheartedly applaud your goal. Now, you had said in your language here, so this is on the livability slide, so prohibit distribution of items or practices that are harmful to wildlife, balloons, confetti, and plastic straws, and monitor compliance. So distribution means we're not going to sell it inside that venue. You all aren't going to sell it or allow it, right?
Like we wouldn't give a drink with a plastic straw or anything like that.
Okay, great. That's fantastic. And then prioritize the use of biodegradable products. So maybe, like, are you thinking of incentivizing the vendors to use those kinds of things? Okay. And then prohibit distribution of, what caught my eye here was distribution of single-use plastic ware and styrofoam packaging and monitor compliance. And I think you had said just single-use plastic, which I view as a difference between utensils and water bottles and beverage bottles. So which is it? Is it both utensils and single-use beverage bottles?
Yes, and we're planning on using the aluminum cups. We're not going to be giving out the plastic cups.
Fantastic. That's great, too. All right. One of the things you had, which just, because there's also, I think it must be the other PowerPoint. Are you going to go through the other PowerPoint as well? Oh, okay. There's one about a timeline of when things are going to happen. And so you've got on water conservation, one tangible to increase awareness of water use and promote behavioral changes, placing stickers in restrooms, kitchens, shower units, laundry rooms, all that stuff where appropriate. You had that like, I don't know, late August or something. I'm thinking those are just stickers you place around. I mean, so hopefully, because a lot of other things are in May and June when we open. And then I have a question about who purchased or decided on the appliances that you have behind the stage, and are there gas appliances there?
Who purchased?
Appliances were purchased by the city? And you do believe it's gas? Oh, you don't believe it's gas? Great. Okay. Good. All right. And then, yeah, again, on the waste reduction, and then you've got your reporting back. So I have, what metrics will be used to show success in each column. And I think it's not, I don't ask that question to like micromanage, but it's to understand what our usage is, track it, hopefully we can lower it. But most importantly, I think it's for celebrating that we're even measuring it, that we care, we're going to measure, and we are determined to keep it as low as possible. And educate. Your education part is fantastic. So I think that's about all I've got. And we do have some, we have 360 Eats. We have some local nonprofits in the area that are already doing good things with food waste. Yeah. Yeah, so maybe if we can just have those reports more frequently than just, yeah. And then, I guess under oversight and accountability, you've got sustainability coordinator serves as point person for communicating expectations and opportunities, and that's both of our you as well as our sustainability coordinator?
Yeah, we've been working with Melody and Micah on that.
Okay. And then just to be clear, this is not a legally binding plan, correct? And then the other thing is, if it changes, so if you find out that, oh my gosh, people are throwing a fit because they can't have a balloon right there near the water, and you decide you're going to change something, I mean, do you get approval or notice for the city, with the city, that we're going to change this component of it?
There's something like that, yes, but that's not in our plan to change. No, definitely no balloons.
Right, right, okay.
We mentioned that specifically in the confetti because, with concerts, sometimes those elements are involved, but we're going to be pretty strict about that in our agreements with our artists that are coming in as well.
And then do you have, on the transportation slide, do you have any plans to, under multimodal options, carpooling and public transit, are you all thinking at all about having shuttles from like Baycare Park or Countryside area or different sections of our city to bring people down?
We are looking into that as we're looking over the parking plan and seeing what's available, what makes the most sense depending on what those areas are.
Okay. Are you even considering things like, as I was reading through it, like on your website, if you tell people, if you bike down here, you get a free beverage coupon or something like that?
We are looking at the best way to incentivize that and ride sharing. There's some venues that say, if you come with a car of 4 people rather than yourself, you get XYZ. So we're looking at those as well.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you very, very much. Super excited.
Thank you, Councilmember Teixeira.
Brianna, thank you so much for that great presentation. I want to take a second just to say that you are deeply missed in downtown and in Capitol Theater. But it's wonderful to see you shine in your new position. So, makes me happy. Great job.
Thank you, Councilmember Robin.
Just a comment, our park and the sound is going to be so successful. This is the best place to show the public our commitment and dedication to sustainability. When I go places now, being from Clearwater and knowing that if you're out on the beach, you're not going to have a styrofoam cup or a plastic straw, you're going to have things that are conducive to sustainability. It's nice. I notice that in other places I go to. So this will be, I think, a great place to show that our commitment. So, great plan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Barber?
Really loved hearing all the details. Thank you. Great job.
Yeah, I just want to add that I think it was a very well put together plan, very thoughtful. I'm looking forward to it being implemented and looking forward to being sustainable and no balloons, no changes like that.
No balloons.
And I know you guys are going to do a great job, so thank you very much. Very impressive presentation. Thank you. Okay, City Manager.
Approve grant award recommendations for North Greenwood Community Grant Program, Cultural Affairs Nonprofit Grant Program, and Education Grants and Partnerships Program, subject to negotiation and execution of grant agreements, and authorize the Administrating Department Directors to execute same.
Wow, that was long. Sorry about that. Hi, good morning. Denise Sanderson, Economic Development and Housing on behalf of the City Manager's Office today. And so for the benefit of our new mayor, I'd like to take a moment to briefly remind everyone of the previous action items that relate to this. On August 4th, 2022, Council approved approximately $22.5 million received from American Rescue Plan Act local fiscal recovery funds be allocated to fiscal year 22 general fund government operations as revenue recovery funds. And within that approval action was the transfer of funds for the grant programs that we'll be discussing today. Additional action was taken on November 3rd when Council authorized staff to expend funds for these grant programs within the framework described in the document attached in your packet entitled Competitive Grant Programs Background. So following that approval, staff created 3 grant applications within our Neighborly cloud-based platform. This is a grant management system that we utilize. We created an ARPA webpage where sample applications and access to the application software could easily be accessed. We issued a call for applications on December 12th, and the solicitation closed on February 15th. During the 9-week period, Public Communications issued press releases and promoted on social media, and staff from soliciting departments held application training workshops and responded to numerous calls and emails to provide technical support. At the close of the application period, 81 applications were received requesting more than $9.7 million in grants. By the end of March, all applications had been reviewed for eligibility and scored based on a number of factors, including consistency with funding objectives, the apparent ability and capacity of the organization to deliver the described program in a timely manner, since encumbrance and expenditure of these funds are at the end of 2024 and 2026, respectively. In the attachment entitled Competitive Grant Program Recommendations, we've summarized the recommendations for each of these grant programs, and for the benefit of those tuning in, I'll briefly describe each. For the North Greenwood Community Grant, which is to be administered by the CRA, we had $1.4 million available for grant awards in 8 categories. Eligibility included the following. Projects and activities must be consistent with the goals and objectives of the North Greenwood CRA Plan. They must serve North Greenwood residents, students who attend schools in the Greenwood area or who work in the North Greenwood area, must demonstrate the capacity to expand or add services, as well as reasonable and a realistic approach to expend the funds in a timely manner, must support activities, programs, and services for youth and adults impacted by pressing socioeconomic concerns. Additionally, applicants were notified that preference was to be given to organizations located within the North Greenwood community or that could demonstrate a history of working successfully in the community, or that can demonstrate established partnerships with stakeholders, and to proposals that had the potential to be sustainable or a scalable model. And as Dr. Matthews mentioned during this morning's CRA meeting, 57 applications were submitted requesting approximately $6.6 million. This represents 72% of funding available in this program. Staff is recommending 25 projects for funding awards, of which 10 are to be fully funded and 15 are partially funded. The average grant is $56,000 with a range of $10,000 to $175,000. As recommended, these awards will fully encumber the $1.4 million available. So I can pause here and we can talk about this grant, or I can move on to the other 2 and catch the questions at the end with administering departments your call.
What's the pleasure of the council?
We've done
Move on?
CRA already, right?
Yes. Okay, let's move on, please.
Okay, great, thank you. For the Cultural Affairs Nonprofit Grant Program, which is to be administered by the Cultural Affairs Division within the Office of Administration, we had $1 million available in 2 categories. Ongoing program support, which is for organizations that are continuing existing programs despite the COVID-19 pandemic, or wish to bring a program back to pre-pandemic levels. Funding is for conducting, creating, producing, presenting, staging, or sponsoring cultural exhibits, performance, educational programs, or events. The other category under which applicants could apply was specific cultural projects, which could include construction projects, one-time events, or art installations that will not have ongoing supporting costs other than routine maintenance or utility costs. In total, 13 applications were submitted requesting more than $1.7 million, which is approximately 174% of funding available. Staff is recommending grant awards for 5 projects, of which 4 are fully funded and 1 is partially funded. The average grant award is just over $114,000 with a low of $12,450 and a high of $250,000. As recommended, these awards will encumber just over $571,000, leaving nearly $429,000 available for a second round of funding solicitations. For the Education Grants and Partnerships, which is to be administered by the City Clerk's Department, we had $750,000 available for activities that address and mitigate learning loss through evidence-based programs. Grant awards are to be limited to nonprofit organizations and stakeholders with experience in providing these programs and who must serve Clearwater residents or students attending schools within Clearwater city limits. Grants can be used to implement new or expand existing programs with allowable activities limited to after-school and summer bridge, high-impact tutoring, STEM enrichment programs, excuse me, student readiness for successful transition from preschool to elementary, elementary to middle, middle to high, and high school to workforce or post-secondary education. 11 applications were submitted requesting nearly $1.4 million or 186% of funding available. Staff is recommending 5 projects for grant awards at $150,000 each, and as recommended, this will fully encumber the funds. Upon approval of grant recommendations, the administering departments will negotiate grant awards, including reporting requirements and how payments of grants to the awardees will be made. In some cases, limited prepayments will be provided or funds may be put in escrow or with a fiscal agent. But in most cases, funding will be provided on a reimbursement basis only. Prioritization will be for summer programming or projects, likely followed by those that would begin with the new school year. I'd be happy to take any questions as well. We have the administrating departments here to address any specifics.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the council?
I have one.
Yes.
Just one.
Just one.
Just one.
You're talking about the balance under the cultural affairs.
Mhm.
If this was a perfect world, how would you assign that $428,000? What area are we missing or we need to focus on more?
I'll have to leave that to the appropriate department to answer that one. I did not review those applications, nor did I get involved in.
I was just wondering.
Amber Bryce is here to address that.
Amber Bryce,
Morning.
Cultural Affairs Coordinator. Are you asking which specific?
In the perfect world, how would you like to assign the next $428,000 that we have in balance for the cultural affairs? Do you
I think
see
myself and the panel had talked about more specifically arts programming. But I know it's under the umbrella of culture, but more specifically like smaller arts organizations.
so smaller visual arts, or are you talking more in the performing arts? What are we missing?
Anything like
Anything
that.
at this point?
Yeah, we also only received 13 grants, 10 were deemed eligible, so there really wasn't as many grants as we would have liked to have seen for that.
Are we doing anything to kind of like spread it out there that the grants are available? Are we doing
Just
anything?
what Denise said, but I would personally reach out to more arts organizations, letting them know
Okay,
to get the word out there
thank you.
for the next round.
Thank you.
I have a question about the arts and culture, if we could, well,
Yes, ma'am.
and then some other ones. But, so we do have, so you have like almost $429,000 remaining in the Cultural Affairs Nonprofit Grant. Are we allowed to see all of the applications that were submitted?
Yes.
Okay, and if 13 applications were submitted and we're awarding 5, and we have leftover money, one thing I was thinking about is, the applicant for Move On Up is the Arts for Life out in North Greenwood, which is arts, culture, dance, all that stuff. And they had a grant request of $60,000 and were recommended $50,000. I'm wondering, did some of these applicants apply for multiple types of grants?
They did. So they were eligible for North Greenwood and the arts and cultural.
Okay, and if only 50 were given here under the North Greenwood grant, could that person, that applicant, pull $10,000 from the cultural affairs to make their grant whole at $60,000?
Yeah, they could reapply and ask for 10 instead of.
Okay. And then, so they'd have to reapply. You didn't, as people looked at the grants that came in, and there were so many that came in under North Greenwood and fewer that came in under the others, but there wasn't a process to look at this program, and it might be able to pull money from different categories, the education or the arts.
Correct. They were all different panels and they were all scored different.
Okay. And in some of and this is more towards, I guess, all of the 3 different grant categories, out of the applications that were submitted and then ones that were awarded, is it that people didn't fill out their applications properly, or they're not? What were some of the problems that we have 400 and some thousand left over with 13 applicants,
So for this specific grant, I have very detailed reasons why each one, which I could provide to the council, but I would say the broad reasoning would be either they failed to show the 1 year of arts and cultural programming, which was a requirement, or they failed to show a lot of detail of how they were going to spend the funds. So they would put it in like the other category and without really breaking down how they plan to spend the funds.
Okay, so when you talk about the detail, because I had a question about some of the, it's more of the North Greenwood grant funds, some of the narrative we got, some of them were very long and some of them were like 2 or 3 sentences. So the ones that, when we get this is exactly what you received for the narrative for how they're going to use that grant fund?
For mine,
For yours?
before I was into this position,
Yeah.
there was a specific requirements.
Okay.
Check boxes.
Okay.
We had to meet.
Okay. Cultural affairs, yeah. The only thing I have that I'd like to make a statement about, and this kind of goes with the topic today as well as the spring when we do budgeting, is when we look at the recipients, I hope that we have a running total when we look at our budget in whole of organizations in our community that receive funding when we make decisions, so that everything throughout the year is added up for us as we go forward and say who's asking for what when and how much have they gotten. Okay. Yeah. So what's the plan for the 429,000 that's allocated for?
Once the grants that were recommended, they
Get
voted on
approved?
by council, and we plan to open the second round in the summer, so June, July. And then I will say Creative Pinellas, which is an arts organization, has offered to host a free grant writing class specific to this grant, so any organization could take advantage of that.
Will the grant language be modified at all?
I would like to modify it, so
Okay.
hopefully, yes.
Okay.
Okay, anyone else? Ms. Walker? I'd just like to say that I know this is always a cumbersome process, and, people are out there looking for funds, and sometimes they don't get it, they're going to be disappointed, but I would encourage us, and I'm sure we do, is to get with the people who didn't get the grants and let them know what they need to do in the future to fulfill the requirements of the application, and I think the class you talked about, the grant writing class, is excellent. So that way that they know what they need to do to
Right.
be funded in the future. So thank you for the presentation, appreciate it.
I will say I have reached out to all of the organizations that were not recommended for funding, so they can have a personal sit-down or phone call with me to discuss
Perfect,
what they're lacking.
thank you very much.
I have a question. Are we moving on, or can we talk about the North Greenwood ones?
Certainly.
Okay.
All right, do we need some, okay, yes.
Yeah, so I had because Denise talked about the North
Yes.
Greenwood ones, right?
Okay.
So I had a question. There were a couple of, or at least, I think in maybe the education and maybe in the North Greenwood, where a recipient received more than was requested. And I just wanted to know what was the thinking there. So senior utility assistants requested 22,400 and got 2,400. And then I think there was an education one maybe that. Our club?
Our club
Yeah,
requested
141,
1,000, and
yeah.
we broke it down to 150.
Yeah.
Just to make it even to everybody, and knowing the kind of organization that it is. The application was strong, so we just broke it down to 150.
Okay.
And regarding the senior utility assistance, it was an application where I think probably most of us said we wish they asked for more. And then when it came down to getting close to the 1.4 million, we decided to allocate the extra there and to a couple of others.
The Metropolitan Ministries, Inc. asked for 128,875 and then received 60. I just had a question about them because they were also before us last week with CDBG funding. And so is that part of the calculus at all in awarding those?
It isn't. We have to
Okay.
look at each of these separately, and I like to keep clear lines and not murk it up with other grant projects. But we looked at, for example, if some of the breakdowns of what the asks were very specific, and had line items next to each ask. And it was great that we had that detailed information to look at, well, we said we won't fund this whole thing. I think this is important. I think that is important. So that's why we have specific amounts for certain parts of the ask.
Okay. And then I think senior utility assistance, as well as maybe North Greenwood homeowner repair, as well as Home Expo and Tool Library. Are those all Tampa Bay housing, neighborhood housing service? I think do they have like capacity? Do they have staff to handle all those 3 different initiatives? So senior utility housing is Tampa Bay neighborhood housing. So is applicant 3, the North Greenwood homeowner repair, and I think that home and tool, yep, those 3 of them are all Tampa Bay neighborhood housing services. So they have capacity to do all that.
I believe so. I think the panel believes so as well. For instance, the Home Expo and Tool Library, that wasn't fully funded because I think the one part of it was like an event or something like that. So that's why it's not the full amount, but yeah, I definitely believe so.
Okay.
We looked at more than just the application. I know that I did. I looked at reviews, I looked at tax information online, I looked at all kinds of things, and even going back to history.
Okay.
For me specifically, since I really am new, I wanted to really do my due diligence, and so I think from my perspective, and I know from economic development, they land a lot of the history as well, so yeah, I'm certain about their capacity.
Okay. And then when a group asks for, let's say they ask for 100,000 and, they get 60, it's totally up to that organization to decide how they want to spend that 60 then, because they have a big narrative, and who's going to decide what that 60 is going to go to?
So that 60 is based upon what we said we would fund, like what I gave the example earlier.
Right.
For instance, there was an organization that asked for, I think maybe 85, and we ended up giving them 30, because out of the 85K in ask, we could see what it was for. And there were certain things that we felt they should already have, or that they were already operating, we were going to fund that. So we were taking the areas where we felt we could make the most impact. And so that's where it's from. We have very specific notes that say we're funding this and this.
Okay.
Or we're not going to fund full-time staff, but we will fund a grant writer at this amount. So they're very specific, and we have to take the time now to include all of that in the agreement.
Okay, that's kind of what I was asking. And then I I don't know if it was the education one, I think it was with Pinellas Education Foundation with a school. Those are going to be schools within Clearwater, incorporated Clearwater, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
that was the criteria of the program, so it was either schools within city limits or students who reside within city limits.
Okay. And then, I'm familiar with First Rung. I've been out there, I've seen Brent and his, project work and like it. But again, was there more, there's certainly more details than what was here on the handout, right?
Yeah, so I believe you just have the summarized,
Yep.
just a snapshot. But, if there is specific information from a particular project that you need, I can pull the whole application and send it over. We did get requests for the score. In the notification, if someone wasn't awarded, then that was a notification, and I said you could also request a score. So the scores will be going out the week of the 24th, the next week. And I've had about 10 requests from scores, not just from people who were denied, but from people who did get awarded. They still want to see what the score is. I've had feedback from people saying, what can I do to strengthen my application the next time? And also, just so that the council is aware, if someone asked maybe for a renovation grant, it wasn't approved for the fact that the CRA is coming on board, and we have a renovation grant that's offered, just as we have downtown, and we'll also be having specific grants that are targeted to the North Greenwood need, and some asks that I've heard, even speaking out to people in the community. So that's the logic behind that as well.
Thanks. Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that Senior Citizen Services through the Pinellas Community Foundation also gives grants to nonprofits. So if some of these people I've noticed in these nonprofits that are applying for our grants, they can also, you could tell them that that's available as well. So it's kind of the same grant process they go through with a grading thing, but it has to do with senior citizens though, like housing or any kind of services. Right?
We had a few grant applications in that category to either help bridge the gap with utilities or help bridge the gap with rent. So I think that's represented here a couple of times, but I would definitely make that note.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
One last thing. All programs here in these grants are for a minimum of 1 year, unless indicated otherwise. Is that correct? It's just 1 year funding?
Yeah, because of the ARPA timeline.
Because of the ARPA timeline, however, as Denise said, they all got put into, all the funds got put into general funds. So we're not held by that, encumbered and expended by, maybe philosophically, but right, not legally?
The applications did not limit it to a one-year funding stream, so we really are going on how they submitted their application and what they propose their expenditure timeline looked like. So we were silent on that, other than they have to be expended by a certain date in 2026 with final reports.
Okay.
But it really was up to the applicant to detail how they wished to fund and the time frame in which they expected to do so. Within the North Greenwood Community Grant, what we focused on was their ability to quickly execute once funded, rather than how quickly could they spend once funded.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Thanks.
Okay, anything else on this item? Okay, again, thank you for your due diligence and your thoroughness. It sounds like it was a very thorough process.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, moving on, finance.
Approve the banking services agreement with Wells Fargo Bank in an annual not to exceed amount of $84,200.
Good morning, Mayor and council members. Jay Ravens, Finance Director. This item is a request for approval of a banking services agreement with Wells Fargo, which piggybacks off of a competitive RFP process recently conducted by the City of Hollywood, Florida. The city has been using Wells Fargo for our banking services since 2016. At that time, we had been with Bank of America for almost 40 years, but concerns with quality of services caused us to go out competitively for bank proposals. Wells Fargo was chosen unanimously at that time by an RFP selection committee. In 2016, council approved a 3-year agreement with 2 options of 2-year renewals, which we have exercised. The final 2-year renewal expires September 30th of 2023. Staff citywide has been very pleased with the level of services and the convenience of the Wells Fargo branch locations. Given the high level of satisfaction with their services and the significant disruption caused citywide when we change banks, staff recommends piggybacking off of the recent City of Hollywood competitive solicitation. The new schedule of fees per the proposed agreement results in an average 5.7% increase in fees versus the current agreement. And again, that agreement was 7 years ago, and those prices were not increased for 7 years, so that 5.7% really is a 7-year increase. The new agreement would be for a 5-year period with the option for 3 additional 2-year extensions, assuming the City of Hollywood exercises their options. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments?
Oh, good.
All good?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. Ravens.
Thank you.
Gas system.
Authorize a purchase order to Equix Holding for the installation of gas main service lines and related construction gas work.
Good morning, Council. I'm Alex Leon, Interim Assistant Director for the Gas Department. This item is requesting approval to approve this purchase order for Equix Energy Services for installation of mains and services within our system. This item is not to exceed $6.6 million. One thing to note on this item is that you'll see that we're requesting a lower amount that was in the original bid process, in the original bid quote. This is for 2 reasons. Our original bid quantities were essentially too high at the beginning, and also the the construction costs associated has increased over the years, from the last 3 years that we've done this. This requires that we essentially reevaluate our bid amounts to lower amounts come within the budget that we have proposed for this upcoming year. This was communicated to both vendors that participate in the bid process. They both agreed to it, and as such, we have a signed agreement with Equix Energy Services.
Okay, questions, comments? Anyone? Yes.
Was the previous contract with Equix Holdings?
No, it was not.
Who was it with?
J.W. Harris.
And, okay. And how much has it increased? Is it increased or decreased from
It has increased
G.W.
significantly.
Harris?
Construction cost has increased significantly from the past 3 years or so.
So what's the differential?
Off the top of my, well, different items increased differently. Some items were as high as 400%, other items were as high as 200%, some items were lower than that. The overall increase, I don't have that exact percentage on top of my head, but there were several bid items. Yeah.
Okay.
Good morning, Brian Langell, Interim Director for Clearwater Gas System. So yes, J.W. Harris was the contractor that we've had for the last 4 years. That purchase order amount was $4.5 million. And so we've gone up to $6.6 million. So it's a considerable increase because J.W. Harris didn't increase their prices from 2019. They only requested a 14% increase last year. And so we knew we were going to see a pretty significant increase because of the construction costs have just skyrocketed. And as Alex has said, that the bid items were a little high on the quantities, and when the contractor increases that rate significantly, you're multiplying it by higher bid quantities. That's why you're seeing that $11 million sum total on the bid groups. But when we sharpened our pencils and looked at those bid quantities during the course of the bid submittals, we came up with the $6.6 million, and we feel like that's a good number. And they did actually, everybody was aware of that. It was transparent, and the bid sum totals didn't change as a result of that. Equix was always the lowest bidder of all sum total items.
So if we're going from 4.5 million for the last 4 years to contract to provide gas infrastructure, and now we're going to 6.6 million, for how long of a contract is the 6.6 million?
It's an annual contract.
Okay.
And so it would have, 3 one-year extensions if we see fit to continue to use their services.
So would we expect gas rates would go up for gas customers to account for this increase?
Right now, we're in the middle of a refresh on our rate study. We did increases in 2021 and 2022 on utility customer charges. We are not projecting a change this year on gas rates.
Thank you.
We'll be bringing that to council, though, in the next couple of months, though, when we get done with our rate study.
For 2024?
Yes.
Okay.
I just have one question.
Sure.
The 6.6 million, does that just specifically for improvements and repair, or does that include forecasted extension of the lines?
That's all of our expansion, that's repairs, that's everything, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Next.
Approve an annual general permit in the amount of $2,813 with Pinellas County.
So this item is essentially an annual permit with the Pinellas County. It allows us to do work, repairs, maintenance within the county, within the utility right-of-way, without having to do a permit for every job that we do. It's a general agreement that covers construction standards, installation standards, and it expedites the process.
Okay. Any questions or comments on this item? Thank you. 6.3.
Accept a gas utility easement from Positron 8 LLC for the construction, installation, and maintenance of gas utility facilities on real property located at 806 North Osceola Avenue.
This item is just to grant us a 5-foot easement for a small portion of the property. allows us the extension of our main line to provide service to our customers, residential customers.
Questions or comments on this item? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Parks and Recreation?
Approve amendment to the Clearwater Comprehensive Plan to address the creation of a new Parks and Recreation impact fee system and pass ordinance 9638-23 on first reading.
Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning.
Welcome back to the dais.
Thank you.
Council members. The item I have before you today amends the recreation open space element of the city comprehensive plan because it's going to provide, hopefully, for a new Parks and Recreation facility impact fee system. The amendment is necessary to ensure the consistency between the comp plan and the proposed text amendment, which would replace the entire Chapter 54 of the Community Development Code. This element has not been updated or changed, revised since 2008, and the original ordinance that adopted the impact fee system has not been updated since 1983. Tyndall Oliver, or now Benish of Tampa, Florida, was retained to prepare a technical report based on the current data that we have now in the city. We have based the new ordinance on that for the impact fees. The specific amendments needed in the comp plan are the following. There are just three. One was to allow for funds collected under Chapter 54 to be used anywhere in the city rather than being restrictive. Number two, it removed the language regarding the application of a service radius to be used for the expenditure of funds. And the third one, we added language to incentivize private development to provide affordable housing dwelling units. The Planning Department, Development Department supports this amendment, as well as the Community Development Board reviewed the proposal of these amendments, and at their meeting of March 21st, they unanimously recommended approval of this amendment. I'm available to answer any questions you might have.
Questions or comments?
I appreciate I'm trying to find my notes, Art, and I can't find, I think they were on, because you guys were on a previous agenda. Didn't we have it tabled or something, but anyway, I appreciate the reduction in fees or elimination of fees, right, it's reduction for affordable housing?
Yes. Yes, that is correct. The affordable housing right now does have to pay a recreation facility fee, although it's not much, but now it has gone away. Mm-hmm. That is correct.
Except for multi-unit,
Multi-use is 50% mm-hmm. of the fee. So there is a reduction there of any multifamily use of affordable housing. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I think that's important.
Okay.
To celebrate. No.
Yes, thank you. Anything else from this item? Okay, 7.2.
Approve amendment to the Clearwater Community Development Code to replace Chapter 54 in its entirety with a revised Chapter 54.
This will be a little bit longer because we're going to explain the actually ordinance that changes the text. As stated before, Ordinance 936-39-23 replaces the entire Chapter 54 with a new impact fee ordinance. In other words, the old is totally gone. The primary reason for this ordinance change is because, as I said before, it hasn't been updated since 1983. And if you can figure that out, that's a long time. It's because I was there when we actually made this, okay? So I know it's been a long time. Secondly, the Florida Impact Fee Act requires that the impact fee be based on current data. And obviously, we've gone through this time and we wanted to do that. So Parks and Recreation Department recommends establishing a new fee. We went and hired, as stated before, the firm of Tyndall Oliver out of now Benish out of Tampa, Florida, and they prepared for us a technical report that the new impact fee system is based on. It should be stated that the current Chapter 54 has served the city and the citizens of Clearwater well. Over the past 40 years, this ordinance has collected $17.5 million, 14.6 for land purchases of parks, and 2.9 for facilities. There's currently a balance of I probably shouldn't tell you this, there's currently a balance of $4 million to purchase additional parkland and also $350,000 for facilities. Just to share with you, some of the parks that were purchased by using this land: Lake Chautauqua Equestrian Park, Joe DiMaggio Complex, the Ray Green Park expansion, which is now the North Greenwood Recreation Center, Sewell Road Park, Sand Key Park, Sauls Lake Park, Lake Chautauqua Park South, State Street Park, and recently, the most recent has been, which many of you have been involved with, is the Del Oro Trail enhancement at Del Oro Park and the expansion of the Eddie C. Moore Complex. However, it's time for a change. From this rapid new development back 40 years ago, there was, believe it or not, vacant land all over Clearwater, and there was tremendous development, and we were able to tap into that and purchase land at that time. Now, as you know, we're at rapid redevelopment in the city of Clearwater without having that land. So I think it best to understand this new impact fee system. I know that you've been given that in your agenda here, but I would like to just go over some of the differences. And I know that we went over this with some of the council members several months ago, if you will recall, but I'd like to go over them briefly with you right now. First, these are the difference between the current and what we're proposing. Currently, there are 3 fees that are charged to a developer, could be charged. There's a recreation facility fee, there's a recreation facility land fee, and there's an open space fee. Under the new ordinance, there'll be 1 fee. The second difference, currently, residential development, overnight accommodations of 8 dwelling units or more, and non-residential developments of 1 acre or more have to pay 4% of their land value in an impact fee. In addition to that, residential developments, annexations, and overnight accommodations, 8 dwelling units or more, have to pay 150 square foot of their development by the value of a square foot of land in recreation facility land fee. And then in addition, recreation development, annexation, 8 dwelling units or more, and overnight accommodations pay $200 per recreation facility fee. That's a lot, and to administer that is even worse, okay? So that's a mouthful have been said. But basically, all of that will go away with the proposed, all 3 fees will go away with 1 fee. It's called the residential, based on residential dwelling units in the city. As according to, I'll show you here in attachment A, this is what we're replacing it with. It's right there. I can read them out, but it's not as much fun. What am I doing? Thank you, Joelle. Appreciate that. She is so efficient, but it's sideways. Is that it? Yes. There we go. Okay. All of that I shared with you before now is replaced with this. In other words, a developer will come in or wants to develop something, they'll say, hey, what's the impact fee? We'll say, fine. You go up to the planning permitting department, not the Parks and Recreation, and just ask them, and they'll be able to look in the little book and they'll say, if it's a single family detached, it's $3,021. That's it, they know that. The same way, multifamily, right now, if a developer comes in to have to deal with that, it is a complex, complicated formula, and any developer that might be here or would tell you the same, because sometimes those change. So that is what we hope to be moving toward. Now, you will notice that in this new ordinance, it is based on residential development. We have removed commercial development from the impact fee, and we've also removed overnight accommodations. So it's based simply on the residential component. The next change or difference is the current fees collected must be spent, and this is what we talked about, within 1 mile for a neighborhood park, 2 miles for a community park, anywhere in the city for natural resource-based park or a citywide park. Under the new ordinance, it may be spent anywhere within the city of Clearwater for land and/or for facilities. The next difference, currently, affordable dwelling units are charged at the same rate. And under this ordinance, there is an exemption to that, as well as there's a 50% reduction of multifamily affordable housing units. You can see that on the chart there. Affordable multifamily, it's 50% or $1,012. Currently, all developments within the CRA are exempt. Under the new ordinance, they are not. That has been removed. That exemption is eliminated. Yes. Anyways.
I'll ask it later.
Huh?
Can I ask now or later?
Certainly, go ahead.
Just because you're on that right now. Can you explain the thought process behind that? Why offer reductions and discounts or exemptions to affordable housing, but then remove that from a CRA district? What's the thought process behind that?
I think the issue was, beginning 40 years ago, the CRA was in a situation where they were trying to encourage residential developments and developments downtown. Now, we're talking about 40 years. And so they've had time to do something in that regard. We now are at the cusp of, basically, we hope to bring in many more developments now in this district and all the districts downtown. And so we want to encourage, or basically we want to tap into that, to be quite honest with you, because new residents are going to be moving here. And if we continue to just basically give an exemption for that, then we would not be able to, for 40 years, they've not had to pay anything, any development in there.
You don't think we're pulling the trigger just a little too early?
That, again, would be your decision to make. Okay? Number next, the difference is the current impact fee system provides for staff to estimate the fees. However, I shared with you before, it's very complex. Right now, they can just go and find the fee and be on their way. Currently, the payment of impact fees is no later than the date a vertical building permit is issued. Under the new ordinance, it's simply based on the certificate of occupancy. It just should be a condition of the certificate of occupancy, which gives some of these projects that take 2, 3, 4 years to transpire. They can keep that money to the end just before they open up their development. Let's see, I got notes here. I'm sorry. The one thing that we are alike in the current ordinance and the proposed ordinance is that we provide exemptions and credits. We provide them for alterations, expansions of dwelling units, accessory buildings or structures to dwelling units, replacement or destroyed dwelling units, annexations of 7 dwelling units or less, single-family affordable housing dwelling units, and any dwelling unit that was previously constructed on the property on a one-for-one basis. For example, you have a home that's on your property, it got removed, you want to build a new, bigger home, then basically you're grandfathered in as a credit for that. There's no fee. And then there's a discount of 50% for multifamily dwelling units. The Tyndall Oliver technical report compared us with 15 other municipalities and counties, and the fees that we're recommending today, and also the policies, basically under Appendix A, rank toward the middle of what all these other cities and counties are charging now. We're 7th for single-family homes, 10th for multifamily homes, 9th for mobile homes. Another important issue to be addressed in this ordinance is to allow developers that have currently started the plan through our planning department to have the option to either fall underneath the existing ordinance or the new ordinance, whichever one benefits them the best. This is in line with what we do when people come for building permits and all of a sudden they're changing the standards all the time, plumbing, electrical. They allow them to start with that standard and complete. And that's what we have done with this ordinance as well. The Planning and Development Department supports this amendment, as well as the Community Development Board at their March 21st, 23 meeting, and unanimously recommended approval of ordinance 9639-23. I am available to answer any questions.
Questions or comments? Yes, sir.
So, Art, can you update me on how many parks we have now in the city of Clearwater?
110.
How much?
110.
110, thank you.
Now, of that, there may be 1 or 2 that we count, but that are perhaps owned by, like Sandkey Park. We look at that because it's in the city of Clearwater, so we would say 109.
that's a
Let me
county
just say
park.
109. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Other questions? Yes.
Well, and some of our parks are like a triangle.
They are.
They're not even parks. I mean, park land, it's green space, but not really, you know what I mean?
I know.
The
and you know
tiniest
what happened?
ones.
Somebody decided to zone them OSR, little teeny triangle, OSR, so, you know,
Yeah, I know it's not your, yeah, but
But I
it's
agree
part
with
of the
you.
110, yeah. I think you answered my question at the last part. I'm struggling just a little bit because I'm taking hand notes instead of these things today, but, so I think it's Archway is the name of the affordable housing builder that's going to be built, that plans to build some affordable units, a development by our community garden. So they would be, if they're, whatever stage of their development they're in, they can choose to use the Parks and Rec ordinance before, when they started, or they can switch to this
They
one.
have moved forward far enough that they can use the current ordinance, which says they're exempt. They're
In the CRA, yeah,
in the CRA area,
Yeah.
as well as some other projects. I think there's one on the Bluff that's going on right now. Those would be, they can choose to be exempt, or they could pay if they would like.
why do you think they
Yeah.
would?
I
But
don't
yeah.
know what they'll choose, but I have assumed they'll
Yeah.
choose the other.
Okay.
Yes.
And then ADUs, are they, so I know some people were talking a little bit about some pilot areas for ADUs and maybe the North Greenwood CRA. So would those be, if I have a home and want to construct an ADU behind me, would that preclude me from this Parks and Rec fee, or how would that work?
Okay. I'm confused,
So if
which
I,
is not unusual, but
No, no.
that's okay. Okay.
like if a homeowner wants to build an ADU in the North Greenwood community.
Correct.
And we have a couple of streets or whatever that we zone or allow that for as a kind of a pilot trial. Would that ADU have to pay some kind of a
Yes.
impact fee? Okay.
Yes, they would.
Even though it's an affordable, it would be affordable and,
Well, if it's just a single family, like I think we just sold some land for one of those, they would not pay anything, no.
okay. And then, all right, so you're saying that businesses and hotels in this new ordinance will not have to pay any Parks and Rec fees?
That is correct. Commercial,
So the hotels that we have, the hotel that we have on the Bluff, or hotels that we want to come or to downtown to activate it, and they walk down to our Imagine Clearwater Park, they're not paying park impact fees.
that is correct.
Is there a way to anticipate how much revenue that would be that we, wouldn't be getting?
There is comparisons we can do. There was a fee that was also researched by Tyndall Oliver. I think their recommendation was, if my memory serves me right, about $2,850 per unit for a
Per hotel?
hotel, right, hotel motel, that could be charged. When we were developing this ordinance, we talked with many of you. We also talked with the current administration at that time, and the decision was to not move forward with that particular element. It could be put into the ordinance, certainly, if you want to continue to charge hotels and resorts the fee. Basically, right now, it has been excluded.
I just think about people coming to our area to stay in a hotel, generally are here to use the beach, our parks. Yeah. And then I did find that note. I just think, to Councilmember Teixeira's comment, we can use CRA funds to offset the change for fees of affordable housing in the CRA maybe. But the other question I had is, when we talk about developments within and outside the CRA, this will immediately apply to the North Greenwood CRA, not just the downtown CRA?
That is not included in this ordinance yet.
So when we talk CRA, it only means the downtown one right now?
That is correct, because there is not a CRA
Right.
in the North Greenwood community.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, and just so you know, the motel homes, of the 15 that we looked at, other cities and counties, there were only 6 of them, I think 6 of them, that had a fee for hotels.
Okay,
Okay? And if we would have adopted that, we would have been probably I think we ranked 3rd or 4th.
are those all coastal, like people who come to a city that's on the water, as close as we're on the water, because those people come for park amenities?
Yeah, I would have to look up to find out exactly which ones they are. I can give that to you, or, just a minute, let's see, they would be the city of Doral, city of Hollywood, city of Boca Raton, the city of Palm Beach Gardens, the city of Village of Royal Palm Beach, and Hillsborough County. Those are the ones
That do, okay.
that charge now for hotels, for a hotel room. Part of our reasoning, I think, was, or at least the reason of administration that did not want to do that, is because we looked at the people that come to the beach, as tourists, and we do this, an economic driver. It'd be an economic driver here as well in the downtown area as it continues to grow and build. So that was one of the main reasons that they didn't do it.
So do we get pushback from developers, hotel developers, about a Parks and Rec fee per unit?
We get pushback from everybody about Parks and Recreation.
Fee.
Okay, we are the last fee they pay. They hate to pay that fee.
But you know what? When people show up here, the thing they talk about most are Parks and Recs and neighborhood outreach and that kind of thing.
Yes.
Of course, they're residents, but, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Mr. Cater? All right, thank you. I think I would like to have prepared for Thursday with what Councilmember Beckman was saying, what would be the economic impact if we charged, and would that be a major disincentive for anyone who wants to bring a hotel into downtown Clearwater, which obviously I think we're trying to incentivize. So I'd just like to hear that, just so we have, sort of balance it out. And just
Okay, between what we basically have collected in the past, or what we're looking at in the future?
Just what would be, whether economic development people, would it be a disincentive for people who are looking? Because they're all looking for incentives,
Yes.
especially to come into downtown. So I would just like to have that information, if it's necessary, that's all.
Okay.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Very good. We'll
All
get
right,
that.
Police Department, 8.1.
Approve a memorandum of agreement between Bob Gualtieri as Sheriff of Pinellas County and the City of Clearwater for a co-responder program to handle mental health-related calls.
Good morning, Dan Sauter, Chief of Police. On January 21st of 2021, the council approved an MOU to establish a mental health co-responder team. Initially, it was constructed as a pilot program, but the agreement was formulated in a way that would allow it to exist in perpetuality. This takes 2 crisis response specialists and pairs them with 2 police officers, and they respond to calls that have an underlying condition of mental health. The agreement for this pilot included us reimbursing the true cost to the Sheriff Department for the 2 crisis response specialists. In January 2021, that cost was $71,600 for a total of $143,200. It did allow in that particular agreement the ability for that cost to escalate, but the agreement that we constructed just isn't consistent with other previous financial agreements. So working with finance, we've constructed really a modified this agreement so that it's not no longer a pilot program, but a program that will be in place. It'll have a 5-year term consistent with most of our other contracts. It does have the ability for the agreement to be terminated within 15 days if so desired. The price has, of course, gone up just with the regular increases in salary, but not significantly. The current price now is $73,850 per specialist for a total of $147,700. This one's written so that it does not exceed $200,000 per year, so we can just leave room for that increase. And I'd be more than happy to answer any question. It's been a very successful program from the perspective of myself and from the officers and from the I believe the reports that we provided you showed a little bit of the value it's providing.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Yes, sir.
I love the program. I'm glad it's continuing. How many calls do we get that takes advantage of this?
So we were fortunate that, we've seen like a 15% decrease from the first year when we started it in 2021. We kind of think that we had kind of attacked some of the low-hanging fruit. But in 2021, they handled 3,200 calls as a department. We handled that many. The clinician, or the mental health units, the 2 units, handled 1,160. In 2022, that number went down to 719 of the 2,746 that we handled. But there's multiple components to this beyond just the 2 crisis response specialists. The officers, as they come across mental health related calls, they indicate in their police report that it's mental health related, and then there's a back end that actually does follow-up calls. So even if they're not here, we're still able to kind of capture those incidences and try to connect people to services. And I think we're being pretty successful in it.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Proud we got this, happy we have it. I'm glad to see it continue.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. All right, do we care to take a break, or we want to go through Public Works first? What's your thought? What's your comment?
Break would be good.
Okay, let's do a 7-minute recess, please.
Thank you.
welcome back to the April 17th Clearwater City Council work session. And we're moving on to item 9, Public Works, 9.1.
Approve the easement vacation request from the owners of property address 125 Island Way to vacate a 10-foot platted public utility easement.
Good morning, Council.
Good morning.
Welcome, Mayor. Robert Kasmer, Public Works, Real Estate Coordinator. This item is for a easement vacation. It is at 125 Island Way, Dolphin Harbour. It is a 10-foot platted public utility easement that runs dead center through the property. At the time it was platted, that was the way they did it. Since then, the property has been redesigned, asking them to us to vacate the easement, which is the purpose of this. There are no utilities within that easement. City staff has reviewed and approved it. Any questions, please?
Any questions? No? Okay, thank you.
As a companion to that vacation, 125 Dolphin Harbour Development has again requested for an easement to relocate the vacation. We are moving that to the border, the adjacent border of the property, where we currently have a water line, which will then be encumbered within our easement in place. So they're asking for one, we're taking away one. This is a very good thing for us. It protects our water and the storm water as well. There are no other utilities going to be placed currently within that. There may be some planned. City staff have reviewed and approved it.
Any questions? Everyone okay keeping this on consent?
Yep.
Thank you. 9.3.
Accept 2 utility easements from Valor Capital Real Estate to install, repair, and maintain said utilities on real property located on 1020 Sunset Point Road.
The owners of 1020 Sunset Point Road have asked for 2 utility easements to be placed. One is for a water, 20 by 15. One is for a sanitary line, 10-foot easement. And there are no utilities to be placed other than with what's being asked within that easement. City staff have reviewed and approved.
Questions? Okay to keep on consent? All right, 9.4, please.
Approve the final plat for Belcher Carwash and Retail Center, 1951 North Belcher Road.
Morning, Council. Kyle Vaughn, Public Works. This proposed plat would create 2 lots on approximately 2.5 acres. No additional rights-of-way to be dedicated to the city, and was approved by the CDB on October 19th, 2022. And I'll take your questions.
Any questions? Again, okay to keep on consent?
Yep.
All right, next, please.
Approve the final plat for Aspen Trail Two subdivision, 2557 and 2563 Ocean Breeze Lane.
Kyle Vaughn, Public Works. This is a replat of 2 existing lots from the original Aspen Trail plat. This replat's going to shift an easement and the common lot line between these 2 lots, and was approved through the planning department.
Any questions on this one? Okay with consent? All right, next one, please.
Accept an 8-foot sidewalk easement from property owner Robert Smith for repair and maintenance affecting real property at 1453 Otten Street.
Good morning, Robert Kasmer,
Good morning.
Public Works, Real Estate Coordinator. The owner of 1453 Otten Street has asked for a sidewalk easement in relation to the plan he put in. We requested to have one in place, and there are no other utilities within that easement. City staff have approved.
Any questions on this one? No? Stay on consent?
Yep.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Accept the right-of-way easement request by Pinellas County for bridge and roadway improvements at Old Coachman Road and Alligator Creek.
Pinellas County has requested a right-of-way easement for the improvement and construction of their roadway and bridge through the park that we own, and part of that plan will be to replace and bury the water line that is now sitting above the ground. And they will, again, be repairing the bridge and the road. Any other disturbed utilities will be put to their original condition. And we have approved, the city staff has approved this request. This was in reference to a prior project agreement approved by council on December 2nd, 2022. And the Public Works has approved this request.
Any questions on this one? Stay on consent?
Yes.
Yep, okay, thank you. All right, thank you very much. Fire Department, 10.1.
Approve the federally funded subaward and grant agreement for public assistance for Hurricane Ian expenditures.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Javon Graham, Division Chief of Emergency Management. The importance of this item is because anytime there's a declaration of emergency or a declared event where there's damage or financial impact, we must get into this agreement from the state in order to receive those reimbursements. Now, for us, even though we didn't get a direct impact with Ian, we did have considerable financial impact due to some damage to some of our facilities, damage to our marine wave attenuators, and also our force account labor, which would account to like over $1.3 million. So in total, it's close to $5 million we're trying to recover. So by allowing the city manager to enter this contract and myself as her representative, we can continue doing the data collection and work on getting reimbursed for the expenses that we put out. And so with that, if there's any questions, I'm here to answer.
Any questions on this item? Yes, ma'am.
I just have a question. When we graciously sent some of our parks and rec, maybe fire and police, to Sanibel, Fort Myers area, would some of this money account for that labor, or that we sent down there?
No,
Was that all
totally
volunteer?
different.
Or?
No, it's not volunteer. What it is, they send a request out through the state typically. And through that request, we have to track on a totally different type of documentation to get that money back. So for some of it, like Parks and Rec, they've already been reimbursed because we send the charts of tools, equipment used, personnel, hourly rates, and everything like that. So that is totally different than this. This is strictly dealing with our operations that we dealt with during Ian for that, not the deployments at all.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Allow this to stay on consent?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Planning.
Approve amendments to the Clearwater Downtown Redevelopment Plan and pass ordinance 9663-23 on first reading.
Good morning, Lauren Matzke, Planning and Development. So this item is the one that was previously discussed during the CRA trustees, and it's the first step required to establish a streamlined approach to allocation of the development potential from the public amenities pool. One thing I didn't mention this morning was, since this is an amendment to the downtown plan, that plan serves a couple of functions. It's a special area plan, which was previously approved by the Pinellas Planning Council, which is now Forward Pinellas. Their staff, or Pinellas' staff, has determined that it's consistent with the countywide rules and no other action will be required on their part. However, it's also our CRA plan, so after council's consideration and assumed approval, it will be transmitted to Pinellas County staff for review and will need to be approved by the Board of County Commissioners.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Okay. Let me be patient, because I'm trying to articulate this.
Sure.
So, this is part of the revitalization efforts of downtown, which is to increase density. So these added, the pool and all these added units, that's going to help to increase the density. I understand that. What I'm trying to figure out is, although I'm sure it's quicker to implement, I'm wondering if there's a more effective tool. And I was just looking at the Ford Pinellas land use strategy study, or sub, kind of what they were doing. And so when I look at page 3, they clearly identify downtown Clearwater as an urban center. And then when you drill down to their zoning numbers, it's a lot higher than I think we have. So my question is, why are we doing the polling, which I think is, you do say it's streamlining, but I don't think it's as streamlined as a zoning change. A zoning change is clearly identifiable to developers, and it eliminates processes of applying for something. And I think it's going to be more attractive to developers if increased density is our goal. I believe that adopting the Fort Pinellas recommendations would be a better tool. Your thoughts?
Well, sure, I haven't gotten into all the details for the bonus because that's the next agenda item, but at a higher level regarding those changes, we've had some preliminary conversations with for Pinellas. We had similar conversations a couple of years ago when the rules were first amended and increased that development potential. It was not in place, or it was just barely in place when we were updating the downtown plan at the time. Typically, to request that additional, it's a more substantial project. It would be at least a year's worth of effort to do that, and that also then makes that higher development potential uniform across the core. This was an approach that, especially a couple of years ago, was determined because, I guess I should step back, at the time, and I think it was noted in the memo, if I recall, when we first met with Fort Pinellas, they were not necessarily supportive of increasing the development potential in downtown across the board. I think we've made some of the changes that they're looking for, but those conversations are still ongoing regarding that. I'm not 100% clear based on those conversations to date whether or not they would fully support a change, and if so, to what degree, whether it be a 6.0 FAR or an 8.0 FAR. But to your main point, you're correct. This is one of the activity centers that is envisioned to be the most dense or intense. In looking at the bonus structure, and again, I don't want to get totally ahead of myself, but we evaluated other major downtowns, including St. Pete, which operates under the county-wide rules, and their base density and intensity for the most part in downtown, and in particular in their core area, is a 4.0 FAR, and then they utilize a bonus structure to exceed that. And they have a streamlined process too. So we were looking in some ways to, see what our counterparts do who are operating under the same structure, but of course downtown St. Pete is really our only peer in this regard.
So I also met with Fort Pinellas because I had so many questions about this. And I was actually encouraged by what Mr. Blanton said. He was supportive. He feels that a lot of the changes that we made to our transit and our travel and all, especially with the intermodal center and all that. So I'm hopeful that conversation can continue, because I do think that this county-wide approach is more efficient and more client-based in terms of development and more clear versus this pool system that I don't think is easily understood or known by developers. So I will continue to have that conversation as well with Fort Pinellas so I can completely understand the process.
Yes, ma'am. And we heard a lot of that feedback regarding it not necessarily being widely known about the pool anymore. I mean, those who were involved, I think, early on when it was originally established have certainly availed themselves of the pool, but as you can tell from the reports, we have a lot of development potential still available. I think having it at a staff level is, certain approvals at a staff level takes the negotiation out of it, and again, I'm trying not to get totally ahead of myself. But additionally, we've been talking with the CRA and looking into ways to further publicize the availability of it, noticing, to your point, that it's not necessarily easy to find on our webpage or any information like that. I think also, as we've worked more with development partners, as things have picked up in downtown, I think the code changes have made that better as well. Like, we're able to also point people in the direction of the downtown amenities pool. One thing is the amenities pool then allows for that conversation between staff and the development, in particular on a case-by-case basis, because you really need to look at, is it appropriate to have the development potential across an entire district or not, and that would be why such a project would take a little bit longer, because you would need to open up the downtown plan again and go through changes to the community development code, the downtown district, potential changes to the form-based code, et cetera. Not saying that it's not doable, it's just not immediate. And so this is one thing that, upon approval, would be readily available because all of this development potential is there. Additionally, the approval of the most recent Community Development Code amendment that Council approved that enables the stacking of density and intensity for vertical mixed use in downtown. When we were looking through all of this, I think several of the projects that have been approved in the past and needed to utilize development potential from the pool would not have needed to use that. So that's one other thing, another tool that we now offer our community in downtown that I think will be very beneficial to them. Again, it's available now, so in the short run, it's up to us to continue to bring that to their attention.
I just feel that there's so much competition with within Tampa Bay and St. Pete specifically, that I just want to remove any hurdle and simplify every process, because we're already competing with, other downtowns that are pretty much providing more. And so if we can remove any hurdle or simplify any process, I'm very supportive of that.
I understand.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
So just a comment on that. So I'm the representative on Fort Pinellas. And I've talked to Whit about this as well, because I wanted to see, when the county changed, I wanted to see us also get involved with higher density for our downtown, for development. And the thing that was holding us back, as you said, was the transportation part of it. But one of the big things that wasn't mentioned is, well, you mentioned the intermodal center and some of the things we're doing, but the waterborne transportation also is a big factor for Fort Pinellas to approve a higher density. So we need to think of that when that comes up again for us to talk about. We need to be talking about that, because Clearwater and Dunedin were really the ones that were going to start that whole thing off. So I understand this is kind of an intermediate thing that we can do to just make sure developers can understand if we don't have that density yet, we've got these other ways to achieve that. So, and we're pushing forward to try to get that higher density for our downtown.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Okay, thank you very much. 11.2.
Approve amendments to the Community Development Code, Appendix C, Downtown District and Development Standards.
Hey, so this is the more in-depth ordinance. This would implement the changes made to the Downtown Redevelopment Plan by establishing the process for the Community Development Coordinator or Planning and Development Director to allocate those units within the downtown district. I mentioned earlier this morning we worked in conjunction with the CRA and Economic Development and Housing staff to provide this streamlined option to receive allocations from the pool. We also wanted to, as is the original purpose of the pool, to incentivize amenities that help meet our redevelopment goals and needs in downtown. Additionally, generating activity for people to live, work, and play in downtown. As noted in the staff report, the proposal to create the two-tier approach was originally presented to council a couple of years ago. Certain bonuses are identified within the code, which the Community Development Coordinator would be authorized to approve. Those are established through a new Table 1 called, or a Tier 1 streamlined allocation approach. And then again, it's important to note that any project that may not need to utilize or may want to propose something different than what's listed in that table could continue to use the units or request the units through approval by the Community Development Board. That's what every project has to go through now. So it's certainly our goal to provide a variety of options that could be approved by staff and provide that structure so staff is aligned with council in terms of meeting their goals. The Table 1 identifies 9 different bonus opportunities. It's a bit much to show on screen, but I'll put it down there just in case. And I can move the pages as needed. But the first column shows the requirement, so for anyone who wants to pull it up, that shows the requirement, also just what the public amenity or public benefit would be in exchange for this additional development potential. Next, then, we have the type of bonus, and applicants may request either additional dwelling units, hotel units, or floor area allowed currently through the pool. That continues over. And then the location in which the bonus is available, and that's divided up by character district. When we first talked with City Council, the focus was primarily on the downtown core, but in working through with staff, we thought there would be excellent opportunities to establish certain bonuses for the other character districts as well, because it's all part of downtown. So these were kind of worked out for that. So there's bonuses proposed, as I mentioned, to bring people to downtown. That would be to incorporate the residential rental units, which has a proposed 40% density bonus across all of the districts. Also, just providing residential overall. Again, that's always been in the public amenities incentive pool. It's important to us. We've been getting some new projects, but this would allow for other options. It would not include short-term rentals, though. And I guess I should note also, this and the residential rental, would apply to either market rate or affordable housing units. For residential units, because that could be owner-occupied, that is a 20% density bonus. Intentionally lower because the rental ideally provides the full-time residents to our downtown. Next is to include Class A office space in downtown, and that would be a proposed bonus of a 25% FAR increase in the downtown core, and then a 20% increase in Prospect Lake. And the other way to bring people is through a hotel use, so continuing to incentivize those, and that would be a 25% FAR bonus in the downtown core. So there's also bonuses to incentivize incorporation of other sustainability needs. So achieving a LEED Gold certification or the equivalent. The proposed bonus is a 35% residential density bump, or 20% hotel density, or 20% FAR in all the character districts. And then including both EV ready or electric vehicle ready charging and so the spaces for future charging installation, and then also a certain number of level 2 charging spaces is proposed for bonus, and that would be 15% residential density, 10% hotel, and 10% FAR, also available in all character districts. And then last but not least, again, one of the original intents of the public amenities incentive pool was to help meet the city's capital improvement needs. So the downtown plan identifies parking as infrastructure. This is an important aspect of really implementing the plan. So there's a bonus proposed to provide public parking within a parking structure or pay into the parking fund, and that would be a 35% residential density bonus, or 20% hotel, or 20% FAR, again, in all parking districts, because as we grow, we need more parking. And then to build streetscape, to meet the master streetscape plan on all of the frontages of a property. And that's a similar bonus, 35% residential, 20 hotel, and 20 FAR. And then one that doesn't fit neatly into all of those, but is just something that brings a lot to the table, I think, in a downtown, is to provide public art or pay into the public art fund. And that would be a 10% residential density, or 5% hotel, or 5% FAR. So that was a lot. And I can answer any questions as we go along. But the density bonus is proposed to be a % of increase, which is a little bit different than some bonus structures, which are usually more of a flat rate. And this approach maintains that proportionality to the increase across the character districts. And there were some examples provided in the staff report for that. But we looked at both options and thought this was the cleanest way also. Staff included those tables illustrating what additional density and intensity means from a per unit across all of those. I know it was a little bit more detailed staff report than is usually necessary, but this was a pretty technical amendment. And then a hypothetical project was provided to really try to illustrate the wide variety of options that would be available to projects included through this bonus structure. So a project would have the ability to provide multiple public amenities, which is sometimes the case what they're proposing, and to stack those densities and intensities. So I looked at it as they can kind of mix and match to reach the number that they want. So they may go for a rental project, but then also provide EV charging and hit a higher number. The pool is also a way that a project can request additional height, which is to be expected if you're adding additional density and intensity. There's no change, though, proposed to what that is currently set to be in the downtown plan or in the code. So that is, a request could be up to 20% additional height, or a minimum of 10%, because sometimes that would be less than 10%, so to make it meaningful, like a full floor of height. But additional language is proposed to be incorporated to emphasize that the determination of how much height would take into account the extent of the public amenities, provided the project's design, and then looking at compatibility with surrounding sites. There's a few other amendments tucked in, I suppose, but I want to go ahead and point those out because they're not intended to be secretive. One is to rename one of the sections and clarify that additional stepbacks and transitions, the applicability of those, and to also just incorporate additional language for clarity. That's similar to the past amendment that you reviewed. Some of these were noticed after that was already going through the process. Noting that in the height transition map, that the additional height request would not be, properties along those few areas where height transitions are required would not be eligible for additional height. Making a correction to one of the tables in the code, just noticed while we were reviewing a different site. And then also, this was noticed to not be included, but should have been in past drafts, that properties utilizing workshop flex and urban residential 2 frontages, sometimes there may need to be greater setbacks in order to accomplish the streetscape proposed or set forth in the master streetscape plan, so this would accommodate those. So this ordinance will be presented to the Community Development Board at their meeting tomorrow, and I'll report back their recommendations on Thursday night. And more questions, I'm sure.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Lauren. I have, I have 2 particular questions that maybe you could ask the CDB. So I sit on the Clearwater Arts Alliance Board, and they've been talking about and may, bring forward a public art fee ordinance, fee for development. Did you guys talk about that or have any feelings about that? I see you've got an incentive, but a requirement. And apparently we used to have a requirement. The city did?
The city did, and this incentive is modeled after that. It was removed a while back based on the city attorney opinion, based on some changes, if I recall, to statutes or to the Supreme Court findings. But I was here, but I don't remember all the details. But we did pull that up, the old ordinance, and utilize that for the guide for the percentages recommended in here.
Because I know they'd like to have it investigated, explored whether or not we can. I think there are other cities that have it. And so I'm wondering if, there's a movement in the coming months to have a fee for public art with new development. Would passing this make it even more difficult to have that looked at, or does one override another?
I'm not sure if I fully understand the question.
So it's, on the Clearwater Arts Alliance, so these are a group of women mostly that have been around a while, and, we're all about public art, and apparently the city had an ordinance a number of years ago and they want that back. Yeah.
Yeah, the issue there is that there is some case law that came out in 2013 from the Florida Supreme Court dealing with a concept called exactions. The concept is that government cannot hold people's property hostage and force them to invest in unrelated matters in order to, as a condition of developing their property. So for example, we can't tell someone that they must pay a public arts fee, for example, as a condition of building an apartment complex. The courts have said that there's no rational nexus between demanding public art versus someone wanting to develop their own property into a apartment complex. What we can do are other things. We can offer sometimes voluntary incentives, or we can do offsets on the city side voluntarily, but for the most part, we cannot compel or force the private sector to pay for public art unless there's really a relatively close nexus between what they're doing and some impact on public art.
But we can do it for parks and rec fees for hotels and businesses and things like that.
That is correct, and that's actually a really good example, because in that context, there's a close enough nexus. If we have a hotel that goes up, for example, there is an impact, right? There's a direct impact on the amount of land that's available for open space. There's also a direct impact on demand for city services. By contrast, if someone's developing their property into an apartment complex, how is that negatively impacting public art around the city? That nexus is one the courts have not really been comfortable with, and that has been the sticking point.
Okay. We could make the argument that people in hotels and apartment complexes value public art and come to us and want public art and public amenities, and so therefore it makes sense to tack on a little fee for the public art, that they're going to live here and work and move around in our communities.
Those people probably do want it. However, the property owner is not in most cases interested in paying the fee. And so the issue is whether we can hold the property owner hostage and force them to pay that fee as a condition of developing their own property.
But they want water, sewer too, people, but anyway, okay. And then the other thing is, that's a little more, is the EV. We have, I'm pretty sure Largo has an EV requirement for development. I'm not sure if St. Pete does.
We do.
Do they? We need, what's your thoughts? Was it discussed about not having it as an incentive, but a requirement?
Well, so I mentioned the three main departments that I worked with, but we did also have coordination with the sustainability coordinator with Melody. I can't commit that they've been exploring it to that detail, but when Sheridan was here, she had provided some information, if I remember correctly. So they shared all of their research. This was based on that. It's a little bit higher than what most people require. There was a workshop recently that talked through kind of expectations for multifamily and what generally is the trend to provide, and this falls in line with that, but is, like I said, a little bit higher than what most municipalities are utilizing when they require it across the board. But it's structured similarly. It's actually started out as being based off of what would be required for a LEED certification, except for that LEED only requires one or the other. You can either provide a certain amount of EV ready, or you can provide the chargers automatically. And Melody and I were in alignment there and recommend both. But similar to those cities that do require it, there's a recommendation to have more EV ready and charging for residential uses versus other non-residential uses.
Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering why we didn't, I'd like to see it a requirement, especially with residential. So maybe we can get feedback from the CDB of what they think about that.
I think that would be a separate ordinance, but.
Right, and that's what I'm thinking, a separate ordinance. Yeah, that, again, in the future, but, yeah.
Gina Clayton, Planning and Development. I was just going to say, throughout these conversations, we talked about our next big code amendment is going to address that, so that this was actually higher than what would be the regular code requirement when we bring that forward, but that is on our work program or the code amendments to do the EV charging.
Ordinance,
Yeah.
okay, great, thank you.
There's always something in the queue.
Yeah, it's never quite fast enough, but it is in the queue. Good, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, thank you. 11.3.
Approve a future land use map amendment from residential urban category to the commercial general for a portion of property located at 1849 Gulf to Bay Boulevard.
Thank you, Kyle Brotherton, Planning and Development. So this case involves a approximate 0.125 acre portion of a 1.135 acre property that's located on the south side of Gulf to Bay Boulevard, approximately 540 feet east of Keene Road. The amendment area is the southern 35 feet more or less of the subject property. The applicant is requesting to amend the future land use map category of the amendment area from residential urban to commercial general. And the applicant has also submitted a zoning atlas amendment, which is being processed concurrently with this case, in case REZ 2022-11007. So this proposed amendment would allow the property to have one consistent future land use map category, and the applicant currently has a building permit in review for a restaurant use. The proposed amendment is consistent with the Comprehensive Plan and Community Development Code as detailed in the staff report, and the Community Development Board reviewed this proposal at its March 21st, 2023 public hearing and unanimously recommended approval.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Okay, thank you. 11.4.
Approve a zoning atlas amendment from the low-medium density residential district to commercial district.
Thank you. So this is a companion zoning atlas amendment case to case LUP 2023-01001. So it proposes to amend that same amendment area, the southern 35 feet more or less, from the low-medium density residential district to the commercial district. Again, this proposed amendment would allow the property to have one consistent zoning district across the property, and it is consistent with Comprehensive Plan and Community Development Code as detailed in the staff report. And the Community Development Board reviewed this proposal at its February 21st, 2023 hearing and unanimously recommended approval.
Any questions or comments on this one? Okay, thank you. 11.5.
Approve the annexation initial future land use map designation of residential low and initial zoning atlas designation for low-medium density residential for property located at Cape Hawk Terrace.
Good morning, Dylan Prince, Plan Development. This voluntary annexation petition involves a 0.232 acre property with a protected address consisting of one parcel of land occupied by a detached dwelling. The property owner entered into an agreement to annex with the city in 2017 when sewer services were expanded to the Cape Hawk Terrace neighborhood. The property is now contiguous to existing city boundaries to the west and south, and the property owner has requested annexation to receive city resident rates for recreation cards. It is proposed that the property be assigned a future land use map designation of residential low and a zoning atlas designation of low-medium density residential.
Any questions? Thank you. All right, 11.6.
Deny the annexation initial future land use map designation of commercial general and initial zoning atlas designation of commercial district for 1224 Adams Avenue.
This voluntary annexation petition involves a 0.313 acre property consisting of one parcel of land occupied by a detached dwelling. The property is located on the west side of Adams Avenue, approximately 925 feet north of Lakeview Road, and is contiguous to existing city boundaries to the north, east, and west. The applicant is requesting annexation in order to receive sanitary sewer and solid waste service from the city. At the March 2nd, 2023 Development Review Committee meeting, the Development Review Committee recommended denial of the proposed annexation due to inconsistencies with the city's Comprehensive Plan and Community Development Code, as well as substandard right-of-way conditions and a lack of readily available city services. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Thank you. City Attorney, 12.1. Oh, sorry.
So often we get denials on this kind of thing. Is it, were the utilities too far away, or?
So specifically, there isn't sanitary sewer available, but the main service that the applicant wanted was solid waste service, but the substandard conditions of the right-of-way wouldn't be fruitful. To provide solid waste service, sorry, let me just read my notes. The 30-foot right-of-way is a dirt road in some places and terminates at next to the subject property. There isn't room to safely turn around for a garbage truck, so it's not, and it's at the end of the road, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll go to City Attorney, 12.1.
Thank you. Mayor, 12.1 is the renewal of a legal services agreement with Bryant Miller Olive for bond counsel. Bryant Miller Olive has served as the city's bond counsel since long before I arrived. Mr. Ravens and I have been pretty pleased with their services. However, one aspect of this that I'm a little bit less excited about is that the city currently separates our bond counsel services and our disclosure counsel services into two separate firms. Apparently, there were some historic reasons for that, but that is, in my view, a best practice that should normally be a single firm. We saw during the Imagine Clearwater issuance some of the disadvantages of having two firms involved. One disadvantage was just duplication of billing, and so you end up with higher fees than having a single partner. The second disadvantage is a little bit of too many cooks in the kitchen. So certainly my preference going forward, and Mr. Ravens and I have talked about this, would be to have one law firm handle both our bond counsel and disclosure counsel services. I would like to do that as a competitive process, even though it is exempt from competitive selection under our code. I just think that's a good practice when we're dealing with public funds. So my proposal is to temporarily renew our contract with Bryant Miller Olive for bond counsel services. That will give Mr. Ravens and I time to put together a competitive process and to bring forward a consolidated proposal and save some money for the city the next time we go out for bond issuance.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Keep this on consent? Thank you. 12.2.
12.2 as well as 12.3 and 12.4 are second readings, but happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Okay, 12.3.
12.3 as well as 12.4 are all second readings, so, but happy to answer any questions.
He did all three in one shot.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. All right, any other questions for the attorney? Okay, city manager, verbal reports.
Good morning. So at our last council meeting, I provided an update as to the tonnages that we were recycling, and we will provide those updates monthly. IT, public communications, and solid waste are working together to get our website updated, so this information will be readily available to the public. That should be available at the beginning of May, so that is coming close to being online. Our RFP for single source streaming for recycling did close last week. We did receive 2 applications for that, and the public meeting to discuss the responses is going to be Tuesday, April 25th at 1 p.m. at MSB, so additional information to follow with that. And we are continuing to work with our consultant. He will provide assistance in terms of evaluating these proposals that we received, as well as some other operational items as it relates to both solid waste and recycling. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, comments? No. Okay, thank you. City attorney, verbal reports?
Nothing at this
today. Any new business from the council? Yes, ma'am.
I have a couple things I'd like to put on for future agendas. Really want to get a noise ordinance update on the books and let residents know what they can expect with the sound opening. What are the noise expectations, and just have an update on that. And would like to have a discussion about our recycling possible credit, making a decision about that sooner rather than later going forward. So whenever it aligns with the consultant's information and feedback and this RFP about single stream recycling, that would be good. In early February, second week of February, I went to Sanibel Island and came back and gave you just a brief overview of that initial visit. I went on a Wednesday, and I think I talked to everyone on Thursday, but I have a presentation I'd like to present at some time as we enter into hurricane season, just about their learnings, their experience. And finally, I have an update on our Solving Homelessness Continuum of Care, which I chair, that I'd like to present that sometime in the next couple of meetings.
Sounds good. Thank you. Councilmember Bunker?
Nothing.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So, as most of you know, I'm on the TRBC board, and so because it's usually on Mondays as well, I have asked that some of these work sessions be switched to the afternoon so that I can make it to those meetings. So I was wondering how the rest of the council feels about just rescheduling work sessions for the afternoon so there's less confusion. Does that conflict with anyone else's schedule? Because Monday mornings is rough for me. I have to move around other obligations as well.
Yeah, are they quarterly meetings or monthly?
Monthly.
Because I have, a lot of times I have COC meetings, sometimes on Mondays. But, yeah,
Might I propose what we used to do back in the day 100 years ago, is we had one meeting in the morning and one meeting at noon or 1 o'clock in the afternoon each month. And if we can get the calendars, would that be a good compromise? And that way we could have the CRA meetings during the afternoon, so we don't have to be here at 6 a.m. or whatever time it was.
I'm okay with having it consistently in the afternoon, actually, as I'm looking for, as the new chair, I have more weight when we have the meetings. So, I think I'd rather have it consistent.
That's fine with me. If
I
there's,
just end up missing a lot.
Yeah, I don't want you missing, but, yeah.
If there are no conflicts, I'd prefer afternoons.
okay, that's fine with me.
Fine.
Yep.
Actually, council, the meeting times are actually based on council rules, so if there's a request to change the rules, then I'd have to confer with the attorney, so that's one. Second question is, when would this be effective? Are you thinking about implementing the change as soon as possible?
Tomorrow.
So I can coordinate the resolution.
As soon as possible, please. And then we could do CRA at noon, the meeting to follow, or 1? What's your
1.
preference there?
Probably 1 o'clock,
1
starting
o'clock?
something at 1.
Okay, that's fine with me. Let's see what we can do to change the rules and move that forward, and let us know.
Thank you.
Good, where we stand. All right. Anything else, Mr. Albertin?
No, good.
Okay, no one else? All right, well, thank you for welcoming me here to my first meeting, and hopefully I didn't stumble through it too much.
All good.
I look forward to working with everyone. It was a good meeting, and we'll look forward to seeing everyone Thursday night. This meeting is adjourned.